So, you've been thinking about starting to play AirSim, but are wondering if you dare to take the challenge, or maybe you even tried but crashed 3 times in a row trying to take off. Well, you're in luck, because I have just the thing for you. Grumpy Bear's QuickStart guide for AirSim. In this tutorial we will go through the following topics: how to set up your mouse and keyboard, how to take from airfield, what is trim, how to use it in the simple way, basic maneuvers worth your time to test out before going to battle, how to land. These topics are also time-stamped, so you can jump to a specific topic as you wish. So let's get started. So first we start with the controls. Select the controls, go into aircraft, full reel, then check that your control mode is mouse joystick. No virtual instructions, no auto trim. Then in the movement, I put on the mouse wheel throttle axis. You can use something else if that's more suitable for you. Then roll, pitch and yaw sensitivity 100%. Then let's scroll down. And we're here, mouse joystick. So here, mouse joystick mode standard. If you use this simplified, the flying of the aircraft in general is a little bit easier, but with simplified you are not going to be able to pull some maneuvers like doing a loop. It will be more difficult to do stuff like that, so better to just learn from the get-go how to use this standard flight model. Then sensitivity, I have it at 50, dead zone 20. Dead zone means there's a small circle in the middle of the screen. As long as your mouse is within that circle, nothing will happen. I have it 20, which is fairly small. If you wish, you can start a little bit higher, but I think 20 is just fine. Should maybe be even lower, but I'm not quite there yet. Screen size dictates how big the area of control is on your screen. I have it at 70 because I think that that's large enough and it doesn't impair my vision. Then aileron, I have it at 100%, rudder at 50. And this is a personal preference, whether or not you would like that mouse area of control to be in a square or as a round shape. Then we can move on. This is our starting setup. So, first thing to do before you go into the battle is learn a little bit about the aircraft. It's nicer to test it out first before going into an actual combat, because some maneuvers are, well, maybe a little bit difficult to pull out at first. Even taking off can be a little bit difficult to start with. Also, when you go into a testing environment, you're not going to be losing any lions, because it's free to do whatever you want there. So, select your aircraft, right click, test flight. Here you can select what is the difficulty model, make sure that you have a simulator battle here. Okay. And here we are in our beautiful cockpit. So what do we see? Well, we have familiar stuff on the top left corner, where we have our throttle, speed, altitude, ammo, fuel. But there's a little bit of a difference when you're taking off. First, of course, you're gonna put your engine on. But every aircraft is a little bit different. For example, a lot of the Messerschmitts have a tendency of pulling quite hard to the left. So you might have to start compensating a little bit. You can either do it with your mouse, that might be enough, usually is. The other option is that you bind to Q and E your rudder, so rudder right, rudder left. And when you start going forward, avoid putting 100% immediately. Especially when it's your first takeoff, you have to sort of feel the plane. So I recommend putting it into something like 35% and see how much you need to compensate. As you can see, it started pulling to the left quite hard immediately, and now it's leveling a little bit. We increase throttle, but we don't slam it to the 100%. We're gonna get the feeling of the airplane, how it's gonna move. Once you have some flight hours in, you know how much to compensate, how hard you can leave and so forth. And there we go. We're leveling. And then gently pull up. And at this point, do not forget about the gears. Gear up. That should be binded to G. And we have a successful takeoff. And as I said before, every plane is different. Just because you can take off successfully in one plane might not be the case with the other one. So it's good to, do this once or twice until you get the hang of it. So what we're gonna be doing next? Well, we're gonna talk a little bit about trim. As you can see where my mouse is, I have to compensate all the time how the airplane is moving. If I put my mouse to the middle, we're gonna start going to the left and down. Now this isn't exactly what we would like to do. So there are two ways of doing this. We can either keep our mouse in a point where we are flying straight, or we can use trim. Now trim is something that some planes you can adjust your trim even mid-flight, and some planes are the kind where you have to put the trim setting in this testing environment. This is because these trim settings were historically in that particular plane only something that the ground crew could do. So therefore you have to do it here in the testing environment. Now, where are the trim settings? Let's take a look. Again, aircraft, and we can write here trim. Auto trim, no. Trim aircraft, I have it page up and T. We have reset trim and trimmer fixation. Trimmer fixation is the key that will actually save the trim. So when you go into the battle, it will load your trim settings automatically. Okay, so let's see. We're gonna find that when we are cruising about 400 kilometers per hour and an altitude of 1300 meters, we wish to trim the airplane to go straight on here. Now it's pretty good. Let's press T. As you can see, iron, rudder and elevator were trimmed. So now when I put it on the middle, the airplane is pretty much going forward. It's lifting up slightly, but this is still fine. The trim is something that is always a little bit different. What's your altitude, what speed you have, and so forth. So basically you would like to trim into some sort of basic, like a cruise trim. So you are flying pretty much straight at a certain altitude and speed. This is not mandatory thing to do, but it's something that, might make it a little bit easier to control the aircraft, at least in the beginning. Now the next thing that we want to do is actually save this trim setting. So we had a home key binded as a save trim. These are now saved. Now when we go to the battle with this airplane, it will remember these trim settings automatically. Now, what would be the next thing to try out? Well, first of course, just check a little bit, how the airplane is rolling. You keep it, in control when you're doing something simple as this. If it feels that that the input is too violent, you can change the settings of like I showed before. Make it a little bit less violent, so to speak. But what are those basic maneuvers that you would like to test out before going into a battle? Well, these are basically what I would be recommending. We are now fairly high, but we are gonna be doing just this horizontal turn. And we're gonna also watch how our altitude is. Yes, we can keep it pretty much straight, and as you can see, the speed is lowering all the time. Now what we're gonna try out is that we're gonna put combat flaps. Usually when you're something like 300-350 kilometers per hour, using combat flaps is safe. Then we're gonna pull the stick even more to make the turn more violent, and we're gonna see what would be the minimum speed that we are able to still maintain control on the aircraft. Now practice doing this for a while, first with the mouse only, and then you can also try to make small adjustments when it comes with your keyboard, because you can also use your keyboard even if you have the mouse control on. Now what usually happens when you are trying this maneuver is that if I would now turn left just a little bit, I will basically lose control of the aircraft, and this happens. So maintaining this is something that you have to be a little bit careful about. If you turn left too hard, you will lose control. But what you can do in order to maintain control is not pull so hard. It's easier to control what is happening with the plane. So first practice that and find at what speed you are still able to maintain control. This is very useful when you are actually in a combat situation, and if you have to circle somebody, you're gonna have some sort of idea of what you're able to do before losing control of the aircraft. It's also something that you'll become better and better the more you do it. Then, next thing that you wanna figure out with your airplane: in what speed will your plane stall? So we're gonna go quite vertical, maximum throttle, and we're gonna see when we are gonna start facing to the ground and no longer able to control the airplane. We went around 120 before gravity wins. Okay. This is useful information in those situations where you have to, go up and maybe try to see if you can win an energy fight, meaning that the plane following you is unable to climb vertically with you, but you are. They'll stall first, and if your airplane also has a fairly good stall control, meaning it can regain its control after stalling, then you have a fighting advantage. Then next thing that we're gonna try, let's take a little bit more speed. Just something simple. We're gonna pull the aircraft up and also turn. And an inverse loop. As you can see, this one didn't work out as well. We'll try it again. And that's something that you should also practice a little bit. Usually the problem is that your control input is too violent and you lose control of the aircraft. So try to find those spots, where you can still pull a maneuver without losing control. Now the next useful thing to try out is what is your maximum diving speed. So let's try that. We have 2000 meters. We're gonna put a lot of power and we are gonna check. And at 700 our wings started to flutter, so we were getting quite close to the breaking point. But this is something that you should be practicing a couple of times. First at 2000, then 3000 and then 4000 to see how fast you're able to dive, at what speeds do your control surfaces become in such a way that you cannot really pull up properly anymore. This particular aircraft was able to do around 700, took that speed from 2000 and pulled up still quite easily. Right. Those were the simple basic maneuvers that you want to try out a couple of times before you start flying. And remember, if you have troubles maintaining control during the game, modify a little bit maybe how sensitive your controls are, or just come to the testing environment and keep practicing to find out exactly how rough you can be with the control surfaces before losing control. And remember, every plane is different. A Spitfire flies totally different than a BF-109. Alright, so how about landing, how you do that? Let's check the map. Airfield is here. So let's start turning towards it. And in order to check your surroundings, C is usually pointed to the tip of your head. Alright, we are going a little bit too fast. 400 kilometers is on the limit of our flaps, so we'll be turning hard to drop the airspeed into around 300 kilometers. And then we'll deploy flaps. And try to maintain the speed a little bit over 200, 250 around is quite good. And we can deploy our gears, lower the airspeed a little bit more, nose a little bit up, and putting the landing flaps. And we can lower the throttle, fairly nice landing. And B to brake. Use a small, careful taps. Once you have something like 70 kilometers per hour, you can usually be a little bit rougher with the brake. There, we're parked. Alright, that's the basic landing. Doesn't have to be perfect, just you achieved your goal if you manage to land on the airfield in one piece.